have to tell you, I'm just grateful to the January 6th committee for the extraordinary work they are doing, both in oversight and accountability. I'm also not surprised that Rudy Giuliani is cooperating in some fashion. I think your guests have already revealed some of the motivations, whether it's I'm broke and I can't afford to keep doing this, or to pressure the former president to understand that he needs to pay some bills. But the breaking news that you just offered, how shameful, how sad, and how utterly predictable. 10 years worth of financial statements are not reliable, as now posted by the Attorney General. I think it's shocking. So I'm, number one, proud of the committee. You know, they have now interviewed, I believe, more than 500 people, subpoenaed 100, obviously getting tremendous cooperation. And I think we've seen an absolute turn in the historical tide. People will and are coming forward to tell the truth of this shameful portion of our history, of what happened in the days leading up to January 6th and after January 6th. But I have to tell you, do you mind if I just mention Happy Valentine's Day? I have behind me where I was today, visiting school children in my district. And they asked me about my job, and they asked me about what do I do. In fact, one really smart third grader raised his hand and said, we're learning about mayors and people who run government stuff. What are you doing here? I thought it was the smartest question. He said, shouldn't you be doing your job? I said, this is doing my job. Visiting this school, understanding how our children are educated is a part of my job. So while it's important to legislate, it's important to do oversight, it's also important to see these brilliant children. These are kindergartner Valentines, by the way, from the Facton School and from Pottstown School. Our job is complicated. Our lives are complicated. So we must continue the oversight work, which the 1-6 committee will do. But in the meantime, we are also governing for the people.
I think it is so typical of women, I'll speak for myself, to do the kind of multitasking, right, that you just did. You know, there's the developments with Rudy, there's the bookend to the case you made before the U.S. Senate, there's the spinning plate of the most basic element of your job, being out in your district talking to school kids, and there's this sort of flashing red light that still looms of all the unanswered questions about Donald Trump's finances, and all the enablers is really what I think the open question is about his 10 years of finances that can't be trusted. We've turned to you so often since the insurrection, and I wonder if sort of the crush of news and what feels like floodgates of revelations about what was really going on, whether it was an effort to use DOD or DOJ or DHS to seize voting machines, whether it's knowing now that they're classified documents amid the boxes that were taken to Mar-a-Lago. Do you feel optimistic that, as Bob Woodward says, the truth will emerge?
Oh, I do. Thank you for asking me that. I absolutely do, and maybe I am lifted every time I meet school students. I am optimistic. You know, I want to comment on the case with the Attorney General talking about the financial statements of the president and his enterprises. Remember what happens there. If you and I apply for a loan, we sign certain documents, and banks rely upon our information. The same thing is true in a larger enterprise. They rely upon our statements of truth and fact as to what we owe, what we own, the value of those things. And if we ever mislead them, they'll call the loan, and much more. They can also have other penalties, whether criminal or civil. So I am optimistic because the truth is coming out. The truth will be revealed about the clown car of people around the former president, and many of them now testifying and cooperating with the committee, and also about the future of our democracy. I think some people are actually coming forward because they know in the end they want their story to be written. So if somehow they got caught up in this nonsense, this narcissistic swirl around the former president, who apparently also flushed documents down the toilet, they might want to separate themselves in terms of history. They might want to actually be with these kids and saying, I'm really here for you and for your future, for the future of this democracy. so that your aspirations, your joy, and your hope are fulfilled. So I am very optimistic, and the younger generation is what gives me that optimism.
Congresswoman, just really quickly, if you'd had Rudy Giuliani as a witness in the second impeachment trial, what would you have asked him?
What did you know? What were you planning? And when did you know it? And what did the president know? What did he urge you to do? Those central questions that have been asked since the time of Richard Nixon. What did you know? What did you advise? When did you know it? Was he actually a part of the team that wanted to seize election booths by way of using a government agency, whether it was Homeland Security or FBI or other agencies? Were you actually a part of such anti-democratic maneuvers? We need to know who was a part of that so that it never happens again. People actually want to know what's at risk. And the young kids that I met with today want to know that their democracy has a future, that they have a future with jobs and education, that they won't suffer in swallowing debt. It's really about them. It's not about people like Rudy Giuliani and a claim to closeness to power. What a shallow, small end to that career. But in the end, I think both Mr. Giuliani and the others around Mr. Trump, they will do themselves and history a service. Come forward and say, here's what I know. Here's what I was a part of. Here's what I am sorry for. And here's what I'm going to make sure never happens again.